Yeah. Who say the way? Woo crew going live, in five. In a time where you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? You got 10, got Graham, they all part of the fam. We got Fran, got Tess, and calling the man. Professor Ross, who started the plan. Got Lauren and Sajin, yeah, they heading the team. Got Kate and Kelsey, ain't nothing to tell me. Marcel and Joe got it hot like Nelly. Saya make the group go higher. Karina, we need her, she'll get it done when it's required. And I'm the one who's supplying all the fire. Woo crew, name a group who fly. Woo crew going live, in five. In a time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? Woo crew going live, in five. In a time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like ours? Gone.
Karina Calhoun. I'm a freshman at College of the Holy Cross, and you're about to watch episode 11 where we interview Alex Backspace Diaz, and he is a b-boy, and we talk a lot about breaking and hip-hop, and I hope you enjoy.
Hear you.
How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Loving life, doing the best.
It was just, has Worcester's music scene inspired, impacted, or changed the music that you either produce or dance to?
I think the scene in Worcester is affected by the scene overall. I could only speak for like the beat. As a dancer, I grew up listening to a certain type of music. It's called freestyle. So it's kind of like electronic music with like love ballads, lyrics in the back, Some examples are like Stevie B, Spring Love, and like, once you go down that rabbit hole, you can like check any of those out. But the music scene came up with when the music changed, like the dance and the art forms change and such. And like I said, I could only speak from a dancer side. With copyright and all of that stuff happening more in the recent years, people are now starting to like make their own beats or like produce their own music. It used to be a big deal to be like on the radio, back then. You're like, oh, I'm like top 10, or like my record sold gold, or anything like that. Now, like record labels is not like a big thing, as with streaming and with all these other methods of like producing music and like being your own distributor. There's no like middle person. So a lot of artists are doing that on their own now. Back then I can imagine aspiring artists from Worcester being like, okay, I got to get on this label. I got to join this like company because that will define my success. But now it's a little different. So that's what I could say about like Worcester. Like Worcester used to be like, okay, there's a talent show. The top talent show gets a spot to like open up for, like a famous rapper or something at the Palladium, right? At the Worcester Palladium. Now it's like, yo, I could put out my own stuff online and like someone will catch it and invite me or fly me out or something. I think the approach is different when it comes to music and the idea of success. I think the idea of success has changed for a lot of artists too, because they like want their freedom. People have learned over the years that if you're successful under someone else's company, for example, you kind of have to do what they want, in order to be successful. Over the years in Worcester, I see that has changed to people are more predominantly individual, not just as an artist, but as their own business. People are learning to like press their own music and sell it, or like start networking, which wasn't really a thing. Back then, it was more like, you're networking, you're selling out, you're like joining like the upper class or the more like advantaged people, or you're going to get taken advantage of and stuff like that. Now, more people are like their own bosses or striving to be.
What inspired you to want to include teaching into the hip hop work you do? Like, was there a specific experience that led you to want to do more for the Worcester community?
Yeah. We started dancing or breaking at the Worcester Youth Center way back then when it first opened. Adolfo Arastia is like the founder of the Worcester Youth Center, and it was like right downtown. Before going there, I learned like in the projects or whatever, you know, you learn with like my friends, my family and stuff. We watched the movie, and then like it took off from there. As I grew over time, I noticed that we needed more places to practice, you know, like one Worcester Youth Center would close, but then like luckily like a month later it would like regroup itself and like reopen down the street, or like we would go to the Worcester Boys Club or the YMCA. But as we got older, we wanted a more legitimate spot, and we wanted to find opportunities. So with the opportunities to teach at dance studios, that gave us the opportunity to like have a place where at first it was like, oh guys, we have a nice place to practice with mirrors and stuff. That was like a thing at first. But then the teachers would ask like, okay, well, here's a breakdance studio. Can you teach this like hip hop class? At first it started as like, just like a master class or something like that. But they liked us, and we would get more opportunities like, oh, well, you know what? You should just permanently teach here. And it was like, you know, a good start. As you're growing up, you're like going from like doing it to teaching it, probably like mid-teenage years. And that's when it was because, you know, they just like saw me and said, what's that? It was more like because I was in a studio and people were told to take hip hop with me. So that was my experience with kids. In 2000, I had my daughter was born. So that was like a thing. I would bring her to all my practices and stuff. And she would just run around, do whatever, you know, and then like every now and then we will have our dance circle, and she would like run through it or like run back, do like a quick butt spin or something, and then like run off again as a kid, you know. But as she got older, all of that craziness started becoming like moves. Like, so it like just developed. It was like, wait a minute, that was an actual move he did there. Like, and then, you know, all of a sudden she's spinning on her head or doing all that. So it was cool to bring my daughter and do shows. And I think that was the first, from my experience thinking about it, that people were like, well, they have a kid in their crew, you know, maybe we could get our kids involved as well. And so when I would teach workshops or stuff, she would be there running around and stuff, but at least she was like the face of like, hey, we're safe, you know, like we got kids too. We're trying to like spread this. And it was a mistake that was like that chunk right there, right? But my personal history with it is we used to practice at Clark University. And one day I went over there because I was expected to teach a class. And I went to the wrong building or something like that. And I saw a bunch of young kids just like practicing, like trying it out and stuff. They obviously snuck in because they were probably like sixth graders and stuff. So I just jumped with them and I was like, all right, guys, I'm here to teach you. Let's go. Only to find out later that my class was scheduled for a different date. And these kids were just like, I accidentally found them. And so I was like, I accidentally taught them a whole workshop as if it was like a class, you know, and they were like, well, okay, you know, I'm so passionate about like the dance. I must have approached them and was like, hey, I'm this breakdancer person that you guys probably like wish you met, and here you are. So I started teaching them. It was cute at first, you know, I bring my daughter, sixth graders, and because at that time there was no one around really practicing, like from my crew. So I was happy to be like, okay, I'll practice with the kids then, you know, it's a spot, you know, whatever, to keep it going. But as I taught more and more, they got better, and teaching them became practicing with them. Then I had an opportunity to go dance on cruise ships. So I left for quite some time. Yeah, I just came back like a year ago when they had sent everybody home. So my experience with kids is I did one contract with Carnival Cruise Lines as an entertainer. Did the whole cha-cha slides, all the party dances, all the kids there. And that was the best job ever. That's all I had to do. So it was like awesome. I thought I made it, whatever. But I got bored because it was just one quick show. So what I would do is during my off time, I would go to like the kids section and like show off for them, teach them a couple moves, whatever. And when they weren't hiring anymore at Carnival, all the breakdancers, it was just like a temporary thing. I went home, tried to get back on, and somehow got redirected to Disney Cruise Line. So now I got hired by Disney Cruise Line. And for the past 6 years, that's my whole life, like working with kids, entertaining them, not just through dancing, but through other things, just playing games with them, kind of being like a camp counselor / entertainer, you know, be on the microphone, play bingo, whatever, you know, anything that has to do with like hanging out and keeping the kids safe. So that's my story, or at least my path.
Talk about like the change that you've seen from young guys now, because you kind of, how do you feel about it? Do you like where it's heading, or are you kind of, because you talked about how sometimes you're kind of uncomfortable with the music.
Yeah, I've learned over the years that there's like the old and the new. You know, when I was breaking, it was just old school, new school, and like that was it. It was like you were either an OG or a newbie, you know. So it's like there's no in between. Our generation, our generation, anyone born or who started from the 90s up, there's like a middle now, you know. So I'm not old school, I'm not new school, but I'm like that generation now that's becoming in the middle, that's kind of like linking the two. I've traveled around and taught a lot of classes like in other countries and stuff. And one thing I find in common is that all the young ones want to do like the cool stuff or like the trendy moves. But you have to learn like the prerequisites. It's kind of like the kids want to do algebra, but their like division sucks or whatever, you know, like there's a part that needs like some practice or moves you have to learn to acquire. Or like in martial arts, like, you know, you want to be a black belt ninja, but you still got to start with your white belt and like get your little yellow stripes on your white belt before you even go to like level 2, you know. So that was like a big thing that I saw. But our generation, because we grew up being like, nah, those are the OGs. They just want us to like stay breakdancing like them, like in the 80s, you know, like wear my Converse and my like Kango hat, and, you know, and then I learned that that's not what they were doing. Their intention was like, these are like the fundamentals, you know, like you have to crawl before you learn to even walk and like all that. This is what we're giving you. This is what we did, you know, and it's not to make you look like us. It's so you could take it to the next level. It's one of those things you don't realize till later, when you're like, oh my goodness, I'm exactly like my parents. You know, it's like that whole generation of breaking is like that, at least ours, because we grew up being like, nah, this old guy, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing. But then as we learn the moves, it's like, oh snap, this is that basic move that this old guy tried to teach me like years back. Like, you know, so when I travel, I'll teach a basic move, and they'll be like, well, that's boring. Why do I want to learn that? I can't battle with that. And it's like, yeah, you can, because then you could do this with it, you know. And then like I start showing off or whatever. And then when the kids are like, oh, wow, that's so cool. How did you do that? And it's like, you got to listen to the OG in the corner that's really actually trying to help you and give you advice or whatever on how to proceed with, whether it's your skills or whatnot. You know, that's a whole other topic, mentoring kids and telling them like, you're a good dancer, but you need to do your homework, or like stuff like that, or like you need to watch your mouth more, you know, like all of those little things. You kind of like become the cool uncle, you know, to these young kids and stuff. But as long as you like give them what's important, you know, and then they carry it. So for me, I love where it's taken. They're getting a lot of support now. Back then it was like, to even practice, you had to like find cardboard. You had to find huge D batteries for that boombox that we used to bring. You had to like, someone had to like bring the broom to the floor, the practice spot on the floor, you know. So like everyone had a job to do back then, you know. It was like, I know you're not good, but you're the guy that has the radio, whatever. Okay, you always show up late, but you have this to offer. Like, oh, you're the guy with the mixtape, because, you know, back then it wasn't easy to like, you know, just have music with you, you know. It was just like you had to bring the tapes or the CDs or whatever it was. So everyone had a part to play before practice even started, Now with the newer generation, it's kind of like you just show up at a studio and it's like, oh, that floor is kind of yucky. I don't want to practice here. You know, like people are not, there's more resources. I don't want to say like this generation is spoiled. There's more resources. But with that said, it's kind of harder to be artistic, right? Because back then, our pride was like, I created a move. This is cool. You know, now with YouTube and with all that, that's a whole nother like, you know, split up with like my generation didn't have YouTube. So if we thought we made up a move and saw it like at an event or at a competition, we would like battle, like, yo, that's my move. I know you saw me somewhere and like you probably copied me. Where it's now, it's just like, you know, like YouTube, you could look like anyone from any country.
You mentioned something about like you're now the cool uncle to those young kids. Did you have someone like you when you were learning?
That's one thing that I could say is that the Worcester scene itself, I gotta mention that like they flourished within themselves. There was no cool uncle, you know, like the creator of the crew, he was 18. Like he was like, whoa, that's an adult, you know, like when we started, we were like 10, 12. So to look up, I know now it's not a big deal as we get older, you know, but when you're like 12 and you're hanging out with like an 18-year-old, that's like your hero, you know, and especially if they know how to do what you want to learn, they're like, oh, he's got it. Oh, he's got like, you know, it's not like when you go to school and now the teacher's way older and you kind of look at them like as an old person, even though you're just like 10, a 30-year-old or 40-year-old might be like considered like someone like not worth listening to. But being the cool uncle will give them kind of like that little inspiration, especially if I'm performing and doing the cool moves, you know, that makes it even like, oh, wow, I want to kind of be like this guy. If not, I want to follow this guy and like do the shows that he does or be more like him in terms of moves.
Is the music scene different in the locations that you have been to than it is in the Worcester scene, or were there more similarities present among them than you thought there would be?
With YouTube, I think there's a lot of similarities everywhere I go, because there's like a famous DJ, for example, might have something on YouTube or like the big breaking battles, the dance battles. If there's like a huge one, then whoever is DJing at that event might put out like a mixtape, you know, like let's say we put like well, for example, there's a big battle competition called Battle of the Year. So whoever DJs that battle kind of gets the chance to be like, oh, well, I got to put out a mix, the Battle of the Year practice mix or something like that, you know? And then like when the date comes, it's like the Battle of the Year competition mix where like all the songs that were played in the battles were probably mixed up and then like streamed or people, you know, so now people who are like trying to compete, because that's the difference now, they're more competitive. Success back then with dancing was like, whatever, I'm happy, I'm with the peeps, you know, and they know that I can like hold a handstand or something, and I'm happy with that, you know. But now it's more like, oh, I won the competition here locally, let me try to like go out there. And Battle of the Year is like a big, you know, like, wow, whoever wins Battle of the Year is going to be known worldwide, or like Red Bull or like any of those ones, you know. So whoever DJs that, everybody around the whole world is like dancing to that, because that's the commercialized mixtape for this battle. So like all the people want to be like that. Kind of like when someone drops an album here, all these local artists, you know, they start sounding like them, because they're feeling like, oh, okay, if I could like adapt what I do to this new stuff, then I could stay competent, you know, which back then it's like, I don't care what I dance, so whether it's this, that, the other, you know. Now it's more like, yeah, but you have to dance like to this music, otherwise it's not really breaking, or otherwise it's only popping, you know. So the people are more strict. Like, if you're gonna do this and compete, you have to listen to this type of music, which is like, I don't know. I have different opinions about it, because with hip hop, any music that like comes from the hip hop culture is hip hop, you know, whether it's breaks, you could hear anything with that certain, like some people call it instrumental, some people call it boom bap, or like drums that you could like just keep a certain rhythm to, whether it's like a slow like trap beat or drum and bass. Those are all elements within hip hop culture. So any of those type of music could be called hip hop music.
So what are the rules within breaking and what's popping?
Oh, popping is when you see people like their body like pops and stuff. Because whenever you see breaking, you always see those guys too. Or whenever you're at a party, someone will like spin on the head and then someone else will be like, oh, check me out, like doing all of that stuff. Those are all, popping is another dance in hip hop. Like it's a hip hop dance.
Just kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Ask you if there's like ever been a distinct moment in your life that you kind of lost passion for hip hop or the music scene in the city of Worcester.
I never lost the passion for like the city of Worcester myself per se, but I could say that I have had bouts of doubt in the way that the system in Worcester would treat like a dance scene. When we were young, like all the youth centers, all the boys and girls clubs, all the YMCAs, there was always opportunities for like teenagers and stuff like that. Now I don't see that as much. Of course, I've also been on ships, on and off for like 6 years. So I don't get to see, oh yeah, by the way, there is a dance club here. You just don't know about it. I could only speak from growing up and what I know. But I think when you get older, it becomes more like, yo, you're getting too old for this. What are you doing with yourself? Like, are you gonna like, follow the crowd, get a career, pay your bills, all of that stuff, get your little white picket fence and all that good stuff? Or are you gonna, do this and be like, medium type living? So some people just make their choices at a certain point.
Since you are a native resident of Worcester, how did your own childhood experience kind of enhance your own passions for wanting to break dance and create music?
All right. Well, for breaking, that's another thing I would put it on the system. Like I lived with my mom until I was until like age 12. What had happened was she was not home, had like went off on a trip for a few days, and my grandparents didn't know about it. And I was old enough, the term latchkey child, where you would like come home and like mom is not home because she's either working or doing her own thing. So the kids learn how to do their own, laundry, cook for themselves. That was kind of like me, and my mom, when she would come home from work, I would already be like ready for bed and all of that. So she went on a trip and my grandparents found my brother and I, and she was like, well, where's your mom? And we didn't know. So she was like, oh, forget all that. You're going to like stay with me. We lived in Plumley Village, which is like the projects near the Centrum. So what happened is when my grandparents were like, well, you're staying with us. If your mom's not going to be around, she's not raised, they're old school. Like, so they're like, okay, you can't raise children if you're not present and all of that, Meanwhile, my mom was out like raising money and working and stuff like that. But she had a point. So she grabbed me after school. And every day, what my grandparents would do every day is just go visit my aunt in Great Brook Valley, which is another projects, way on the side, on the edge of town near West Mountain Street. So every day I would go there, and that's where I met my cousin. And we would hang out. And after a year, one day we came in the summer, and they were on cardboard doing stuff. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And it was like, oh, we're doing this thing. It's called breakdancing, whatever. And it's like, what's that? That's where I met like the leader, the older guy, when I was young. I met the cool uncle of their time there in the projects, 18-year-old guy who like was teaching them how to pop and little like coffee grinder moves and spinning on your butt and stuff. And so it was like, well, you guys ain't watching Power Rangers no more, so I guess let's do this, So we went from like watching TV, hanging out, to like it was like nicer outside. It was summer, so we were getting out more. But it was just that cardboard outside with electronic music playing or anything like that. And that would be my daily thing. I kind of like got put in there, you know, and then like my grandparents, they basically took custody of me and my brother. So it was kind of like foster care system. Even though it was my grandparents, I was like a child of the system in terms of like, yeah, he has his mom there, but like whatever, he lives with his grandma. And being in that system, being like, okay, well, there's a social worker involved and all this craziness, that had happened. But with that, the good part about all of that is got to go to the projects every day and hang out with my cousin and learn like this breaking stuff. And then after like 6 years, we saw a flyer like at the bus stop, like, oh, breaking competition in Boston. You know, we were like, there's other breakers? I thought this was like 1985 stuff that we were just like having fun with. And then we learned that there were other people and it was cool. So we had like our own little bubble, didn't even know it. So that's one thing I could say about the Worcester scene. Like we celebrated our hip hop locally. You know, there was, of course, once again, it wasn't like internet. We weren't doing it because it was cool. We were doing it because that's just what we did. You know, tennis wasn't a thing. You know, before breaking, I loved baseball, but you know, if you need a team for baseball, you know, I can't like walk around trying to recruit other baseball players to like get down. You know, it's like it used to be weird, like knocking on people's doors, like we need people for baseball, you know. But with breaking, it was just like, no, you just play the music, and if it's just two of you, that's fine. Or if it's just one and you want to practice something, that's cool too.
Well, how's COVID-19 kind of impacted the work that you've been doing recently, if at all?
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, my as like my job, you know, I work on cruise ships, so I'm a cruise ship entertainer. So it's been like bittersweet, I guess, because I'm not like on the ships traveling home, but that's also been like really a blessing for me because you know, I get to be with my family, I get to be with my friends, I get to dance 24/7, you know, whenever I want. When I get my jobs here, they're more dance related rather than like, okay, entertain these 30 kids who are like different ages. It's more like, all right, let's go dance doing what you love. I think the pandemic unemployment assistance and all of that, I have to give that once again to the system. The system, as much as people hate on it or anything like that, it has a crucial role in the development of hip hop. You know, like what's happening here? Is it more like, I'm not like a politician at all, you know, but I do know that when there's like funding, for example, you know, to like these places like the Boys and Girls Club or places like that, or even if like funding from a business goes to like, you know, a university to be like, okay, well, do this project so there is some information. I gotta give credit to that. You know, I wouldn't be doing this interview if it wasn't for like stuff like that. COVID throughout the summer has been practice outside, which is way different. You know, throughout the summer, we're used to being inside, you know, trying to spin on a wood floor or something. But I think COVID has given people the opportunity to reflect on whether they could be alone, think on their own, create within their own, like whether living room or stuff like that, or work on individualized skills, whether, you know, dancing in my area category, or if you're a musician playing your instrument, or if you're a lyricist writing lyrics, working on your craft. I think business wise, it's a disadvantage, but the other side of it is you get the freedom, the time. You know, some people need more time than money, and now is the opportunity where like the money part, some people are hurting, but the time, it's kind of like it's how you look at it. You know, it's like, yeah, COVID, but like it's been the best time to make the best out of yourself. It's been the best time to have that opportunity to look within, to be like, all right, what am I really doing with my life? Like, what's important to me? You know, am I like, what's making me upset? You know, I can't hug my family. I can't go do what I love. I gotta like not breathe as hard around people, you know, that distance. I think it has been like a weird time, but coming from a place where like I'm away anyways, you know, it's still like a step up with my situation. I imagine that it's a lot harder for a lot of people. I'm enjoying coming back home with my family, friends, and doing all that, and dancing all day. I'm around if you need any follow-ups or have anything. Also, I just wanted to know, like with you guys, I tend to want to ask this when I teach college classes or workshops. Just what just to know, like, what are your guys' expectations, or why did you pick this hip hop class? Was it because it was an elective, or because you were curious, or because you like, not even to judge, just so I have a general knowledge of, like, like what students, who would be doing this, what are their, not intentions, but like, so when I go, what are what are they thinking? So when I go in, like meet them or teach, I know, like, got to get participation, or what's the point? What are you guys trying to look for in the hip hop classes?
It's actually a Montserrat like first year class. So we actually didn't choose it. We got placed in it. But for me personally, I like it just because I'm into music a lot. My dad's actually a musician. So it's extremely interesting for me. And I just try to learn as much as I can, get educated kind of about, the origins of hip hop and how it's changed, the aspects of it, like how you were talking about at the very beginning, how breaking is a part of hip hop. It's not two separate things. So it's pretty cool for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Going off of that, it is like a first year Montserrat type class. So we had the like choice to put 6 down that we were interested in. And obviously this was one of the ones that I put down just because it was in the description. Obviously hip hop originated in the Bronx, New York, and I am from the Bronx. So I was like extremely intrigued by that. And I was like, oh, I have to put this down because like I've been born and raised here. So like I wanted to know more about like how the Bronx like kind of was a crucial role in like the development of the hip hop genre, and of course breakdancing and emceeing and DJing and all of that. So I was extremely interested because of that, and I love the class. I mean, we talk about so many different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really enjoy it. So that's why I was interested by it.
Yeah, I was interested in just like the whole evolution of hip hop and everything, and how we went back, started with the whole history and everything like that. Just this class and just learning how it started, like how it's evolved and changed and what it is now. And I just found that really interesting, and I've really enjoyed learning about that. And I didn't realize that there was more to like hip hop itself than just the music, So like I didn't realize that there was like graffiti breaking, like there's so much to it, and it's been really cool.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's amazing, like how all these different arts sprung from all of that, from like creating something from nothing, and then after you have that, tweaking it, no matter what genre it is. All right, thank you guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A word from our state rep, Daniel Donahue, about an important nonprofit organization located in Worcester. We hope you will support in solidarity with the Woo Crew.
Hi, I'm Daniel Donahue, Massachusetts State Representative for the 16th Worcester District. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a bit more about Abby's House, a nonprofit organization that values women from diverse backgrounds and experiences in my hometown of Worcester, Mass. The mission of Abby's House is to provide shelter and affordable housing, as well as advocacy and support services to homeless, battered, and low-income women with or without children. This is an important organization in our community, values hospitality, diversity and inclusion, compassion and respect, women's self-determination, and collective effort. Holy Cross was the first class to help support the women of Abby's House by providing volunteers to staff the shelter dating back to 1976. And Holy Cross students and alumni continue to partner with Abby's House by providing monetary, in-kind, and volunteer support. I hope you'll consider joining us by making a donation to Abby's House in honor of their 45th anniversary. Your donations will help to keep in operation the 79 units of supportive housing and 9 overnight shelter beds of Abby's House. Additionally, your donation will contribute to the wonderful programs of Abby's House, such as providing each woman with an advocate who helps her identify realistic goals and provides her with the tools she needs to achieve these goals. If you are able and willing, to make a gift to this amazing nonprofit, please click the link accompanying this video. If you would like to learn more about Abby's House, including opportunities for volunteering, please visit them at abbyshouse.org. Thank you.
Thank you for your time listening to our state representative talk about this great opportunity to support the Worcester community. And now back to the Woo Crew for more excitement.